Hello, 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 and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jameelah, and I am a master manifester, and I'm sure you are too, because you're watching content like this. The name of this beautiful channel is Holistic Manifesting, because I believe in a whole body, whole mind, and whole being experience when it comes to manifesting these amazing lives that we are choosing. I got that one done. What I'm discussing in this video is don't be afraid of a major emotional release. And so when I say major emotional release, I'm discussing when you are getting to the point where you're feeling that you are about to combust in some kind of way, and it's not always a negative thing, and it can feel like a major emotional release. So I'll give an example that's probably a better example than I have than trying to explain it in that way, because I was like, what's a better way to explain this? But all I could come up with was a major emotional release. I remember the time when I was like going through divorce and everything, and I was wanting to just get everything done. I want to get this done. I want to get back into the house. I want to go to court. I want to finish this stuff. I want to get the children settled in whatever they're going to be doing as far as classes and stuff like that. Like, they weren't in class yet, but I remember I had a friend of mine doing childcare for me. And so, because I never did a daycare, so I had them doing childcare, and I was like, I just need to get everything settled. And when I tell you, I was moving, I was going, I was doing, I was making sure everything was getting done. I had gotten rid of the car that I had, in the marriage, because it was a shared vehicle, and I gave it to someone because, when you're going through stuff, you just like, here, you get a car, you you can have my stuff. And it's like, I was just giving away everything. And so I remember that, and it's like, I was like, I need to get another vehicle. It was just so many things and stuff. And I remember riding down, and I every time I think about this, I know the exact street I was driving down, and I had a little minivan at the time, and everything sort of started getting settled. I found a rental house, and I was able to start moving in, and everything started to get to where it was a little bit quiet. And what's so funny is that I had never stopped to think about everything that was happening, everything that was unfolding, everything that I was going through, all of the emotions that I was processing, all of the feelings, the ways that I felt like, oh, this was unfair. And just, it was so much pressure, and I was doing so much to keep up with it. I was staying on top of everything. And I remember riding down that road, and I literally felt like I was going to faint. I felt like I was going to faint, like my head was overheating. And that's why I always know that metaphysics is real, because there's always a non-tangible aspect to our human experience that we can't always explain, but we know we feel it happening. Something goes on with us. We can feel our body reacting to it, right? And this is an emotional thing. So this is your emotions and your feelings making things happen to your body. And all I could do in that very moment, because I was in a car with all the windows rolled up, I started screaming at the top of my lungs. And I'm not talking about screaming any words. I'm talking about just actual screaming, like, like screaming like that. I didn't even know that I needed to do that. I didn't even know why I was doing it. I didn't even know whether it was acceptable, because I always felt like, you don't act like that. That's, but I knew nobody could hear me. And when I tell you, I did that about 3 or 4 times at the top of my lungs, and it felt so good. And when that happened, what I was thinking about was that I finally had a moment to really take in what I had been going through. And it was a couple of year period. And I'm like, in such a short period, you had to go through so much. You had to, fight for custody for your children. You had to go to these counseling classes that were given to you by the court and stuff. You had to do these things. And I was just saying okay to everything. I just was like, yep, okay, let's do this. What I got to do to get them, to make sure that I keep my, okay, let's go do that. What place do I need to go do this? I'm going to sign up for that. It's like everything was just this, get it done. And when I finally had a moment to stop, it's like I was finally able to mourn what I had been going through. And it's not even mourning the relationship. Part of us, we are mourning the version of ourselves that we were before we got to the point that we are in. It's like I was mourning that version of me that was bright eye and bushy tail and optimistic about marriage and life and all that kind of stuff, and had not experienced what I experienced, and had not been dragged through court, and had not been, told I couldn't stay in my own home for a year and a half while I was going through divorce, and who had not been living around with different family members and stuff like that. It's like I was mourning that innocent girl that was like 27, 28 years old. I was mourning her, and I didn't even realize how much that mattered in those moments. Because sometimes we want to just keep pushing forward in life and keep on moving, and we're like, keep it moving. That's a common saying that a lot of people have. And while I believe in the whole idea of keep it moving, I do believe that there's a point that you're going to come to where when you are shifting heavily from one experience to the next in your life, there has to be some type of emotional release. And sometimes that's just crying. Sometimes it's sleeping for 2 days straight or something like that. Sometimes it may even be laughing hysterically for, hours upon hours with people and friends or somebody that you love or people you're hanging with. And then you just feel incredibly good after that. It's like digesting what you've been through. And so many of us go through so many things in life. We experience the thing, we go through it, we know that it wasn't right, and we just accepted it as it was because we were just like, you know what? It is what it is. I'm going to keep on. That's another one of those. It is what it is, and it's nothing wrong with it, but it kind of stops us from experiencing what we're actually going through. And we kind of mill through life that way. Like we do this, do that, and we just push through our days and we keep on going. Especially, and I say this all the time and I know it, but especially if you are a mother, especially if you are a woman that takes care of anybody, because we have these big hormonal shifts that happen every single month in our bodies. And when those hormonal shifts happen, they take a true toll on us. But we've been told that we live in this world that, you know what, you have that baby 6 weeks, you go back to work. No such thing as postpartum. You know what? You have that monthly cycle and it really takes everything out of you, because I'm one of those people. And it's just like, no, but we got to sit and act like we're like the men in this men's world, because if we show one bit of weakness in that our hormones and our bodies are actually doing something every single month, then all of a sudden we're not viable in the space. So it's almost like you're between a rock and a hard place sometimes. And we're told to do this, and we just keep on pushing through, and we never get that opportunity to really just say, hey man, I'm freaking tired and I'm about to lay here and cry for a few hours, and it's okay. I'm not going to let my emotions make me angry and walk around here saying things to people that I can't take back, or being rude, or, making major decisions when I probably shouldn't be making them because I'm all over the place. But having that major emotional release is what allows us to reset so many times. I don't know how many times I've had that happen. I had a major shift. The previous relationship I was in, and I was like, it was a decent relationship. I can't say like it was so negative. There were negative aspects, but yeah, nonetheless, I moved on from it. And my first thing I was doing was like, okay, got to get this apartment, got to, get this. My car had to go in the shop. There were so many things that had to be done. I had to get my girls ready for school. It was a whole series of things that needed to be done, and I didn't have time to focus on that. But when I tell you, the same way it did after that time with divorce, when everything finally slowed down, I found myself breaking down. And it's not like one particular day. It was like for an entire week. I was like angry. I was crying. I was emotional. I was upset. It was just a releasing of all of the pent up energy, a releasing of all of the negative energy that I had experienced in that environment, a releasing of all of the potential and the hope that we have sometimes in a particular situation, and like accepting the disappointment and like experiencing the disappointment, because sometimes we want to feel tough and we want to act like if we don't act disappointed, that means we weren't disappointed. And that's just not the case. And when we allow ourselves that major emotional release, we can then hit that reset button and move on. And sometimes we can't hit the reset button and move on until we actually do that. because we're told that our emotions need to completely stay to ourselves, or either we have a life that we built that's so tight around what other people need from us all the time that we don't even have the moment to say, I'm going to sit in this bed today and cry. I'm going to sit in this bed today and just release, because I just need to let go of all of this. I'm going to sit in this tub and soak in some Epsom salt and just cry and listen to music and just have a day or have a moment and just do this major emotional cleanse and then move on my life, because I have to acknowledge the transition that I've gone through. I have to acknowledge that I'm mourning a version of me that no longer exists. A prime example. I'm sorry, my throat is really... My daughter was this morning, time to go to school, right? Well, she's been having a week. Things have been just going a certain kind of way. And she had a musical competition, and she had a solo, and she does the piccolo and the flute and a couple of other instruments too. But the piccolo, for whatever reason, it broke. And the one that she was supposed to use, the other girl didn't bring it back to the place it was supposed to be in, so she couldn't perform. And let me tell you, all this just wore her out. It mentally wore her out, because she's been practicing this music for months. And it was one of those moments where it was a rub on the back, and it's like, man, sometimes things freaking sucks, and it just is what it is. And she must have laid in my lap for like about an hour or so until she fell asleep, and then it just is what it is. I'm like, it just didn't work out the way you wanted it to. So then in the morning, when it was time to go to school this morning, she came downstairs, and I looked in her face and I looked in her eyes. I said, "You ready?" And she went, "Yeah." And I said, "No, you're not." I said, "You want to stay home today?" And she said, "I guess so." I said, "You need a day. You need a day." I'm like, "You never miss school, ever. You need a day." I was like, you look like the way you feel in your eyes. I can see it, right? And also, she's a young lady. She's having her time right now. And I'm just like, sometimes you just don't need to keep pushing when it's your time of the month and stuff and everything's going awry. You just don't need to do that. There's nothing that's happening that you need to do that. You know what I mean? It's okay to take a breath and just sit here and cry for the day and relax or whatever. I get home in the afternoon. She is like a brand new person, playing those video games, playing with with Kitty, who has a name. Her name is Meg. But I let my daughter name the cat, and she named the cat Megatron. And so, Megatron. And so, it's been hard for me and her sister to call the cat Megatron. So that's why the kitty has been named Kitty. We are not those people that don't name pets, because our last pet was named Delilah. And Delilah was a beautiful name, and we called her, to this day, her name. But Kitty got stuck with Kitty because nobody wants to say Megatron. And she got mad when we said it wasn't a good name, so it stays Meg. Nonetheless, and she is like just a whole new person. And so sometimes just allowing ourselves the space to say, hey, I don't have to be like a machine. I don't have to be like a robot. I don't have to continuously put myself through all of the changes and transitions of life and then pretend like those changes and transitions didn't happen. And the same thing happened after I left a toxic work environment. I was like angry for like 3 weeks after that, and I couldn't release the tension. And then finally one day it was just a downpour, because while we remove ourselves, that energy, that energetic hold is still on us. And when we walk away from these things, we can't pretend like that energetic hold is not there. So it's like, oh, I'm so happy to be free. You're free, but allow that energy to subside, because whatever was happening in that environment, it got on the inside of you. And it's okay to admit that and then allow yourself to go through that transition. And even in that instance, I was mourning the person that was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about the workplace, because I had never been in a workplace and worked with other people like that closely. I've always taught, and this was kind of more like a regular job. And I hadn't done a job like that in a very, very long time, especially not in my field. And they were like, oh, we need somebody who's bright and smart. And I just felt so beat down by what it actually was when I got in there and how I was actually treated on a regular basis. That's why I know what I'm doing now is a treat. I know I've worked. I know I deserve what I'm living right now, right? And it was a sad, sad feeling, because I was just like, I used to just be like so easygoing and all, but it can come back. And sometimes we think like we go through these things and it was so rough and um, we got this negative energy on us. The biggest thing that we have to remember and do is that have that major emotional release, because when you don't, I'm a firm believer that that stuck energy stays within you. And that's what trauma in the body feels like and looks like. It's that energy that's stuck inside of you because you weren't honest with yourself and saying, you know what, that really damaged me in this way. That really made me feel this way. And I have to find a way to release it. And I have to allow myself to cry about it. Like crying about things and having a major emotional release about it doesn't make us weak. It doesn't make us want the thing back either. Because even with that previous relationship, I had that major emotional release, but that was not a part of me that wanted to be back into that relationship and that connection. And so it didn't have anything to do with that. But what it had to do with is that, you know what? I finally thought I was in the place where, not even finally, I was in a place where I was resting in my feminine energy, and somebody was just like, I want to take care of you all and all this kind of stuff. And it wound up not turning out to be that. And it's perfectly okay that that wasn't the situation. But a part of me was like, it's okay to cry about that. It's okay to be disappointed about that. It doesn't mean that I'm weak. It doesn't mean that this person got the best of me. It means that I'm human. And that I had certain amount of energy and participation embedded in that experience. And when that experience didn't work out, it's okay for me to find a way to release the energy I had built up in that area. And that's all that's saying, right? Anyway, don't be afraid of a major emotional release. I believe we need that, right? We need that. And it's kind of like, and I know it's like, oh, if you're not a woman or you don't have a cycle, my apologies, but I'm going to say this. It's like when when the time of the month comes and there's like, I know I do, it's like an agitation, terrible pain, nausea sometimes, not all the time, but some of these things happen, and like headache, you know, it's not always the same. And it seems as soon as the cycle starts and everything begins to release, that's when the symptoms 90% of the way subside. And I feel like it's the same way in our lives. When we go through major shifts and transitions, don't try to push through it and act like it didn't happen. Don't try to act like, oh, you know, oh, this is nothing, because what it will do is it'll make you feel stuck. It'll stop you from moving forward. It'll make you bitter. It'll make you indifferent. It'll make you feel like you are not, what is it called? Balanced. And you don't want to get out of that space. It's okay for situations to be hard. It's okay for things to happen to us. But we have to just be like, man, that was really something. We have to have those days where we just say, everything stops. I'm about to cry about this. Or we get in that car and get on the highway and we scream at the top of our lungs. That felt so good. Because I was angry. I was so angry that I had to go through so much. And I couldn't believe I had to go through so much. I couldn't believe I had to fight for custody of my children. For somebody who was a lackluster parent eventually anyway. It's like, you didn't even want the kids. You wanted to hurt somebody. I couldn't believe that that was my story. I was so angry about it. And to not allow myself to get caught up in the bitterness and allow that to dictate who I was, I had to release in some kind of way. So that's all I got to say, because I could talk about this forever and I've lost all my sunlight. Anyway, don't be afraid of a major emotional release. They're good for the mind, the body, and the spirit, especially when it comes to manifesting the amazing life that you want to live, that you're choosing to live. Co-creating comes with calm, internal, relaxed, easy energy. And if you don't have that type of energy going on, you're going to find that everything is 10 times harder. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day.